Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we've got a really fascinating mix of high-level industry shakeups and some incredibly down-to-earth gaming recommendations for you. If you've been paying attention to the gaming space lately, you already know there are some massive foundational shifts happening over at Xbox right now. But, at the very same time, we've got 3 brand new, vastly different games to play this weekend, and honestly, they perfectly capture exactly why we love this medium in the first place.
Okay, let's dive into this. We'll start with a look at Xbox's spring strategy shakeup, then move on to some deep space drama with Aphelion, some cozy retail therapy with Incombini, downhill chaos in sledding game, and finally, we'll wrap up with the subscription tier debate.
So, Section 1. Xbox's spring strategy shakeup, a macro view.
Before we actually get into the games themselves, we really need to set the stage here by looking at the massive strategic shifts Microsoft has been making this spring. These moves, they completely recontextualize the value of the platform as a whole. There is just a sheer volume of structural changes happening literally all at once under CEO Asha Sharma. First off, Microsoft has actually lowered the subscription price. I know, a price drop is definitely a rare move in today's market, but they also announced a major shift in release strategy right alongside that. Future Call of Duty titles will no longer be day-and-date releases on Game Pass, so that's a huge deal. On the branding side, Microsoft Gaming has officially been streamlined to just Xbox. And honestly, perhaps most significantly, they're reassessing their entire approach to exclusive games. We've actually already seen this in action, right? With Gears of War Reloaded landing on the PS5. These are foundational changes to how the business operates, and ultimately, how they view their flagship franchises.
But despite all of that high-level restructuring, the core offering of the service remains absolutely massive. 900. Just think about that number. That represents the staggering amount of titles currently available on Game Pass right now. It's like a giant, endless library that just keeps growing, especially recently, bolstered by those major April drops like Hades 2 and Tiny Bookshop. That sheer volume is the anchor here. It's exactly what keeps players invested while all those corporate plates are shifting in the background.
Moving on to Section 2, Deep Space Drama, Aphelion.
Zooming in from that macro corporate level, let's look at our first weekend game recommendation. If you're in the mood for something incredibly atmospheric, sweeping, and just intensely cinematic, Aphelion is the latest title from developer Don't Nod that you really need to pay attention to. The whole premise basically centers on this gripping question: Planet Persephone, are we alone? It's this deep space adventure following 2 astronauts who, by the way, are also former lovers. They're venturing out to a newly discovered planet, Persephone, to investigate if it's actually suitable for human life. But, well, as you might expect in a tense space drama, things immediately go terribly awry. The pair end up separated, and they have to venture across Persephone seeking answers to the planet's mysteries and ultimately seeking each other.
And this setup brilliantly illustrates exactly why the game works so well. One reviewer actually noted that Aphelion's storytelling is as top-notch as you'd expect from a Don't Nod game, and it really is. Now, while the minute-to-minute gameplay might not be the most invigorating, edge-of-your-seat action you'll experience this year, the emotional journey of these characters makes it an absolute must-play. It's a true narrative-first experience that is for sure going to stick with you long after the weekend is over.
All right, on to Section 3, Cozy Retail Therapy, Incombini.
We are completely changing the pace here. Take a deep breath, just relax your shoulders for a second. If a harrowing space tragedy isn't really your vibe for the weekend, Incombini might be exactly what you need. It contrasts everyday connections with grand adventure by actively rejecting that traditional high-stakes action formula. Instead of saving the world, you're placed in charge of a local shop in this beautifully quiet small-town convenience store simulator. You'll spend your time stocking shelves, managing those day-to-day tasks. But honestly, the real magic happens right in between those chores, through branching conversations with the store's regulars. You really get to know them, uncover the quiet secrets of this small town, and just build those everyday connections. It's a real gem, and the perfect low-stress way to unwind.
Next up, Section 4, Downhill Chaos, Sledding Game. Okay, we are ramping the energy right back up for our third and final weekend pick. If you want something fast, funny, and just completely unhinged to play with your friends, think of this like the game Peak, but, going downwards. Sledding Game is entirely about hanging out with your buds and experiencing these hilarious, totally unpredictable ragdoll physics as you hurl yourself down a freezing mountain. It doesn't take itself seriously at all, literally 0%, and that is exactly why it's so incredibly fun.
Now, the crucial point to make here is that even though Sledding Game is currently in early access, it is already absolutely packed with content. You've got tons of unlockable sleds, various playable characters, and cosmetics to fully customize your runs. Plus, the downhill chaos is constantly broken up with these great mini-games like snowball fights and making snowmen. It's basically a complete winter playground that's ready to go right now.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds, the subscription tier debate.
So, we've looked at the massive corporate shifts, and we've explored 3 fantastic, totally distinct games added to the service. Let's tie those micro-game recommendations back into the macro Xbox subscription ecosystem, looking at how the community is actually reacting to all of this. This brings us to a really insightful comment from a player named Sean. He writes, "I hope they didn't remove some of the value of that tier to try and push more people to get Ultimate." Sean shared his own experience of actually downgrading from the Ultimate tier right after a recent price hike. Interestingly, though, he noted that he was pleasantly surprised with how much value is still included in the Premium tier, which is where indie and mid-tier games like Inkobini and Sledding Game usually shine. It really highlights a delicate balancing act for Xbox right now, retaining value in lower tiers without, cannibalizing their Premium Ultimate subscriptions.
Which leads us to our final thought for today's explainer. Is Game Pass still the ultimate value? It's really a question you have to weigh for yourself based on all the data we've covered today. On one hand, you have access to a massive library of over 900 games. That's incredible variety, ranging from deep space tragedies to cozy convenience store sims. But on the other hand, you have these shifting corporate strategies, changing price points across different tiers, and the loss of day-and-date blockbuster releases like Call of Duty. So think about your own playing habits. Does this new reality still serve your gaming needs? It's a lot to chew on. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.